No, you're okay.
Item 3, public, I need approval of the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 3, public appearances and citizen comments on items not listed on this agenda. Items will not be debated or acted upon in this meeting, but will be referred to the proper staff or committee if action is required. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. None? Okay. Item 4, approval of the consent agenda.
I do have a question on the police report. Page 13. You had some training. Attended a 4 rescue task force training course at Newburgh High School. What's the 4? That's indication.
4 hours.
4 hours. Okay. Thank you. I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Item 5, new business. Proclamation 2025 new police, national police week. Well, here we go. Whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15, 2024.
No. I can't change that, I'll change it, keep on.
As Police Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which May 15th falls, is National Police Week, and whereas the members of law enforcement agencies of the Village of New Glarus play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the Village of New Glarus, especially Police Chief Sturdivant and New Glarus Police Department officers and staff. And whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agencies, and that members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of the law enforcement agency of the Village of New Glarus unceasingly provide a vital public service. Now, therefore, I, Roger Trutman, President of the Village of New Glarus Board of Trustees, call upon the citizens of New Glarus, the Village of New Glarus, and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who, by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities, have rendered a dedicated service to their communities, and in so doing, have established for themselves an inevitable, enduring reputation for preserving the rights and securities of all citizens. Dated this 20th day of May, 2025.
One question, would the men and women of the department prefer to be called officers?
That's their titles,
Yeah, I wouldn't have said men and women, I would have said officers.
No, no, that's true.
Thank you.
Okay. Item B, presentation, Mike Peters, President and CEO of WPPI Energy. Right?
Thank you for giving me a few minutes on the agenda tonight. This is an opportunity really for you all to ask questions. I do have a presentation, I understand it was provided in the material that you have, but, and we'll use that walk through it, but if you have any questions at all, just type up and have to answer those questions. So, this, WPPI, this is our 45th anniversary year, so we've been around since 1980. We have our annual meeting in September. Perhaps some of you will be able to attend, but from our very beginning, we have really focused on the clicker scroll. There we go. The computer's always fun. One of the things that we looked at a couple of years ago was the relationship between WPPI and our member communities in the business documents that govern the organization. And we wanted to update our mission and vision statement so that everybody is very clear that we support the members. You are the utility. We are here to support you and provide you the services and power supply, et cetera, that you need to serve the village of New Glarus. We're not the utility. You are the utility, and your crews are the ones that really do the work, keeping the lights on when there's storms. I'm not going out in the storm. These guys are. So they are the ones that are out front, and we are in the back. We are here to help you. Even though you're a relatively small utility, you have access. We have 116 or so employees. We all see ourselves as an extension of our member community. So while you may not have the staff expertise, you have access through WPPI to really whatever you need in order to provide the services. Beth Carlson's your ESM. She's a great contact for you. If Beth doesn't have the information, she knows who to talk to back at the office to get it. A couple of things that we're focused on in 2025, electric generation resource planning. We have some very large contracts that roll off starting in late 27, going through 2033. The biggest contract is Point Beach Nuclear. That contract ends in 2030 and 2033. It's a very sizable resource for us. And the numbers may not mean anything, but it'll give you some relative size. We're an 1,100 megawatt utility. That's the peak load that we serve collectively amongst our 51 members. We'll have to add between 2028 and 2033 about 400 megawatts of new generation because of contracts rolling off. So that's a pretty sizable amount for an organization like us, 35+%. New Glarus, to give you a perspective, you're about a 2 megawatt utility. So relatively small from the utility standpoint, but your services and what you provide to your community are as everything that you would expect from a utility the size of MGE or Alliant or any others that you would be compared to. So you have through WPPI access to quite a bit from power supply, very diversified portfolio, but also the services is really what you probably deal with most. We're looking at a big issue that all the utilities in the region are dealing with is transmission growth. Right now, transmission is about 15% of our cost to you. And so when you look at it for a power supply, the bill that your customer gets, transmission is about 12 to 13% of our customer's bill. We are going to see a significant increase in new transmission over the next 10 years. ATC, which is the transmission provider in this part of the state, they started out 24 years ago. They were about a $500 million company from an asset standpoint. Today, they're $6 billion. Over the next 10 years, they're going to add between 8 and 10 billion in new transmission, let alone other transmission that's getting built in this part of the country. All told, there's about $32 billion of new transmission that will be built in this 10-year window that we're looking at. So for WPPI, that's going to be a significant increase in our transmission investment, which is, we use the income that we get from our transmission investment to reduce your rates. It is a direct benefit to our member communities for us to own transmission. Regardless of who owns it, we pay the same rate. There's a rate that's approved by MISO, an independent system operator, that would be charged, and we would pay that rate whether it was owned by ATC or another transmission provider. By ATC providing the service and we have an ownership, then we use the revenue to offset our rates. So it is a direct benefit, but we're looking at a significant increase in our transmission costs over the next 10+ years.
Are we one of the smallest of the 51?
Yeah, you're one of the small ones.
Who is the one?
Well, the two largest are sort of close, Nash and Takana. They're about 100 megawatts, and you all, we have smaller than New Glarus. Absolutely, we have one member, Preston, in Iowa. They have about a 900 meter utility company, pretty small community in Iowa. even though you might be a small municipal utility, you all do extremely well. You have good reliability, operate a good system, your rates are very competitive. Matter of fact, one slide down, this slide right here, these are WTPI's average wholesale cost to our members. You can see that our rates today, if you look at what they are today, they're pretty much about what they were in 2012. So our rate, other than a bit of an uptick in 2022, natural gas prices spiked by about 100% from what we had anticipated in 22. And so our average cost went up. Even though gas prices went up 100%, our average cost went up 10%. So because of our portfolio, it wasn't as much of an impact. And then it came back down to about what it was. The lighter blue line is inflation adjusted. And you can see if you look at it from an inflation adjusted standpoint, we're $15 or so below what we were in 2012. So you've done a pretty good job. But if you take that and then look at what your rates are to your customers, your residential rates are about 30% below the neighboring area. So you're doing really well. Your commercial customers, downtown Main Street, those types of customers, they're about 10% below the neighboring IOU rates. If you took the exact same customer, dropped it into your neighboring industrial utility, you're 10% better on commercial, which is really good. So for a small utility, you do very well. So kudos to your team and your crews. They're doing a great job. Put back up. So this is a little bit of background for those who you may already know this, but it's a refresher. As I said, we were created in 1980. Up until then, municipal utilities like yourself had two options. You either own your own generation resources, which would have been a challenge for a utility your size, or you bought from the investor-owned utility that did surround your community. And what our member utilities back in those days found out is they didn't have any leverage when it came to negotiating costs, so they couldn't negotiate, and they actually were not paying the same rates. Some municipalities paid more, some paid less. It was basically whatever they could negotiate, and they didn't have a lot of options there. So we were created in 1980 to give you all economies of scale. Like I said, we're an 1,100 megawatt utility. We're bigger electrically than MG&E, so we're a decent sized group when we look at it as a collective. That lets us own a lot of, we can own larger generation resources, we can have larger contracts, we can have longer term contracts, which then you get a piece of that through your ownership of a utility your size would not have the diversity in your power supply that you have simply because of the size. You wouldn't have nuclear energy, natural gas, and all the renewables that we have. You would not be able to do that in a utility of your size. But through us, you get a piece of all of that.
Is Point Beach the only nuclear plant?
Point Beach is the only nuclear plant today, and it's right now it's licensed to operate through 2033. They are looking to extend that license, and my guess is they will get it extended. And we might have an option to continue that contract, but we'll have to take a look at it. It'll be driven by cost, whether they're gonna, what's the charge. It's not an inexpensive resource for us. It's a good resource. It runs pretty much 24/7, 365. From a reliability standpoint, it's as reliable as any power plant in the region. So it's a good resource. But when they get the license renewed, we'll see what options we have.
Wind is by far the cheapest.
Wind is a good energy resource, and actually, if you just look at the cost to operate and run, our coal plants are actually doing really well. They get they're very competitive. Wind is a really good resource. The only challenge you have with wind is the fact that it's not always blowing. Same with solar. I mean, today is a horrible day for solar.
Good day for wind.
Good day for wind. So the renewables we have about 25% of our portfolio is renewable, so we have a pretty healthy mix. This gives you a sort of a picture of our diverse portfolio. We have a couple of wind contracts in Iowa, several in Wisconsin, and then one that is covered up by that's in northern Illinois, which is actually our newest wind resource. It came online in 2017. It's about half the cost of the other wind resources we have. We adopted wind pretty early, and it was more expensive. The wind contracts we're looking at in the last 3 to 4 years are at least half the cost of what we were paying for the older wind contracts. So those start to roll off in 2027, and that'll be fine. The newer wind resources, they operate better, they have more capacity, and they're cheaper. And so we're actually negotiating right now to add some more wind, and we're hoping to be able to add more wind in 2027 as some of these older contracts roll off, which would be good. We'll swap out less expensive wind resource and actually get more energy out of it than what we do with the older one. So diversity is really critical for our success, and like I showed you with that cost gas impact in 22, it helps mitigate any kind of shocks to the rates. I talked a little bit about transmission ownership, but just to make sure if you have any questions there, as I said, it's about 15% of our cost. We're going to see some pretty significant growth in the transmission area in the coming years. Our ownership in ATC is about 6.7%. We get about $12 to $13 million a year in income from our investment in ATC. And as I said, that goes directly to reducing our average wholesale rate. The investments on an annual basis have been manageable, typically $5 to $7 million a year in capital costs. What ATC does when they build the transmission, the owners have to put in capital. They also borrow money. They also have retained earnings that they use to build the transmission assets. Their growth is going to be such that we would no longer be able to meet it simply out of our margins. This year, the capital cost for us this year is over $15 million. Our annual margin is like $13 million. So we would have to raise rates. We were able to set aside money last year and this year to make this year's $15 million capital cost. Next year, they go up to $26 million. And so we're looking to borrow money or figure out. We have a couple of ideas that we're going to meet with our executive committee in August to discuss how should we pay for our transmission investment over the next 4 to 5 years. So stay tuned. We'll have a lot more to talk about probably in our board meeting in September.
Is ATC the only one who puts up transmission lines in Wisconsin?
There's also Darien Power Cooperative, which owns the transmission, and then NSP or Excel owns transmission on about a third of the state on the western side.
Okay.
So there's 3 transmission providers in Wisconsin. This ATC provides transmission in all of the UP of Michigan, and then about 2/3 of the state of Wisconsin is ATC's footprint.
Is that the lines along the belt line in Madison?
Those are ATC lines. Yep, those are ATC. And then there's a line that runs along the highway from Madison to the Butte, Iowa.
Yeah.
That's an ATC line as well.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
really what's driving transmission is we're going away, or there's a lot of new renewable energy systems being built, and they're spread out, and they're away from where traditional power plants were built. So we're building the transmission to allow that energy, which is pretty cost competitive, to come to load centers. So that's why there's a lot of renewables in Iowa, northern Illinois, even in parts of Wisconsin, that the transmission system isn't big enough to handle all the renewables. And so this new build out transmission will allow more renewables to come into the system. I talked a little bit about what we're doing on power supply. So we did a request for proposals last year for new resources because of this number, the amount that we have rolling off on our contracts. And we got a couple of proposals that we're pursuing. One is a renewable wind contract that would, if we're able to get that one done, it would start in 2027. We're also looking at natural gas as a potential new resource. If you've seen anything in the news, you've heard a lot about data centers. And WEPCO has some significant data center load that's being built in their area, which is driving them to build a significant amount of new generation. Just like you have economies of scale through WPTI, we get economies of scale if we can partner with other utilities on a resource. So while we could build our own natural gas fired generation, if WEPCO is gonna build an 1,100 megawatt plant and we get, 7% of that gives us access to a lower cost resource that we can then pass on to our members. So we're looking at as a possibility, and adding that would come online in about 2028 if that goes through. And then we're also looking at, potentially building our own. We're actually gonna talk to our executive committee this week about doing a feasibility study where we would find a location, look at the technology that's available, and then actually maybe procure some property that would allow us to build our own new generation that we would want to, or we would look to partner with others as well. Talked a bit about data centers. We actually have some inquiries among some of our members about data centers. I would say none of them are so far along that we would, start looking for power supply to serve them. But some of the inquiries we're getting are really large, like anywhere from 100 to 300 megawatts at one customer location. As I said, our largest member is 100 megawatts. Like the entire city of Kaukauna is about 100 megawatts. And so we're looking at data center that could be 3 times the size of our largest member. So we're talking. We don't have anything definitive yet. Probably if it's going to happen we'll know in the next year or two. And so we'll look for ways to serve that type of a customer and still protect our customers that we currently serve. That's a big challenge because if you build a resource to serve that kind of a load and they go away in 5 years and we still own the resource, guess who pays for that? All of our other members. So we were actually looking at how can we serve that kind of load but not expose the other members to the risk, but give some benefit to the other members by having that size of load. So stay tuned, there'll be a lot more to talk about in the coming years. Our business technology piece, that's the billing system that we provide to our members, all the way from the meter data into the data management into the other side, which is the customer bill. They now have access online with my account. Like I said, even though you're relatively small, you have a pretty robust technology system that is really pretty similar to what you would have if you were a customer of NGE or Alliant or WEPCO. As I said, this is our 45th year. Our annual meeting is in September at Rambo Field, and perhaps some of you will be able to attend. Look forward to as I said, a nice 45-year. Looking to go well beyond that. So, let me answer your questions you might have about WPPI.
Thank you. How long have you been with the company?
14 and a half years. It's gone by quick. Sort of a blink and you're 14, 15 years in.
It doesn't slow down.
It does not. It seems like it speeds up.
Bill, you got any questions or comments?
No. WPPI has been a great asset they have, whether it be here or who doesn't want to keep. You can't, it's a small utility, you can't do it yourselves.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Obviously, if you all need any response, we'll do that. So, I know Chris shows you probably talks to you quite a bit. So,
I like the monitor trip.
yeah, well, that's what he's for. He's out there. So, appreciate it. Good to see you guys. Thank you. I'll let you get back to your meeting. Take care, everybody.
Item C, presentation, consideration, discussion, 2024 financial audit.
Yep.
Shannon?
I thought I recognized you.
Yeah, I just need you once or twice. Yeah. You should be able to click. Well, thank you very much for having me this evening. I'm looking forward to discussing a little bit of the financial statements and the audit process with you. There is a presentation that you have. We'll slide through this. And my contact information is at the end. If you have any questions, if you think of them later on, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm going to discuss a little bit overview of the audit scope, a little bit of the process, give you a little bit of picture into what Kelsey has to deal with as she does speak about the audit process. A little bit, I'll present our audit opinion, that's our end result, a few general communications to you as governance. A couple of highlights, I know you get more current information from Kelsey on a regular basis, but we'll just wrap up the year with a few highlights. And then there's some information that's more reading as you look forward to give you a little bit of picture on what your team is going to be looking forward to and working through in the future. I spent most of my life looking in the past, but I like to take at least a couple of minutes and look into the future with you before I end. A little bit of an overview of the scope of the audit, what we kind of end result of what comes out. The primary piece that most people are used to seeing is the opinion or the report on the organization's financial statements. About 3 or 4 pages in your financial statements, and that's all that's fine. The rest is all yours. We do an internal control management letter communication to you. You do have what's called a government audit under audit standards, sometimes referred to as a yellow book. It's a little bit higher level of assurance and one that you do need because you are receiving these single audits this year for the first time. We also have our communication to you with government letter that highlights a few more of the results. The single audit report is in process. It's not quite complete. We're working through those compliance procedures. I'll give you a little bit of overview of that, but that is still wrapping up.
And Shannon, can you just give a highlight of why we're in the single audit process?
Yes. So the single audit process is if you receive more than $750,000 of federal funding in any given year, then you cross into what's called a single audit. It's a grant compliance audit. It looks at some of the compliance procedures for your largest grants. With the programs that you have going on with your utility projects and USDA loan, you crossed into that land for this year for the first time, and you can kind of go over that and under that in any given year. It really is that single project that's pushing you over there, and then we'll watch that closely as you move into the 2025 year and the 26 for the 26 audit. So this year that threshold moves up to $1 million from $750,000 to $1 million. So if you spend $1 million or more, and that's all your federal revenue sources. So that could be FEMA money, that could be clean water fund loans if you've got federal dollars in there, that could be the USDA loan, that could be any of the other federal grants. You combine those all together and you cross that threshold, then we start collecting and doing some compliance procedures.
$1 million from EPA is what triggered for this 2024 year, and then obviously the federal funding for the library. We'll probably trigger it again, so.
Yep, and it doesn't look at every single program. It goes through a risk assessment and it targets your largest programs. You have a relatively limited number of programs, so you guys will be familiar with the ones that you'll be testing. But it's the same type of procedures that are done at organizations across the country. That's what is called the Single Audit Act back in strong 60s. 60s and 70s to try and reduce that administrative burden. So it's a uniform set of procedures that test some of those grant compliance. So if you're looking at the county, if you're looking at large cities, or even if you're looking at the states, they all receive the same type of testing, just on a scale basis, depending on the number of programs. It includes an opinion, or it includes a report on your internal controls and your compliance with your major programs. So when you have that single audit report, you'll have the control procedures over the financial statement audit, which is already available. That's the yellow book or internal controls over financial reporting. We have a report on that, but not an opinion. Same on the federal side. It's not an opinion on your internal controls, it's a report, and then an opinion on the programs that they're compliant with.
Who pays for that? And when we move into another arena, we get a bill for that more microscopic analysis we do.
Yep. It is usually eligible to be claimed under the grant program because it's a direct grant eligible expense. So if you have money left in your grant to pay for it, it is usually a grant eligible expenditure. But yes, it is something that's supposed to.
How much now, 50% more?
No, it's about $9,000. So what?
About a quarter of what our normal audit costs.
Okay.
So for the financial statement audit process, we do a risk-based audit. We do look at your internal controls to help us design our procedures and inform those procedures. But again, there's no opinion issued on those. It's not a broad enough basis for an opinion, but it does inform those procedures. Try to take advantage of all of the hard work that your team is already doing to help inform our procedures. We don't look at every transaction and every balance. We're looking at your largest and most significant balances and classes of transactions. These are usually the ones that are already making it to your table for discussion. Your revenue recognition, your grant, your utility revenues, your taxes, significant estimates, anything that's an accrual basis, that's based on estimates, and your largest estimate numbers are Wisconsin retirement system, so the retirement system numbers, and then the local retiree life insurance. So those numbers are coming from the state. We are estimated based on actuarial input and flow down to the village as well. So looking at your debt, the new transactions that you have going on this year, different activities there, cash and investments, your general disbursements of checks that are cutting payroll, and then also capital assets. There's a fair amount of activity in there. We did issue an unmodified opinion financial statements. That's the highest level of assurance. We can provide you that those financial statements are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles and free of material misstatements. That's kind of the highest level of assurance we can give you. Right there. That's consistent with the opinion that's been presented in previous years as well. We did include one material weakness related to businesses preparing those financial statements. They get progressively more complex and specific. We provide some assistance with that preparation. And then we do have a small team, so you do have a significant efficiency related to internal control. That's your department, and it would be extremely challenging to achieve those.
We get that every year.
Yep, these are both, should be pretty familiar comments, and if you canvass similar kind entities in the area, you would see very similar items within their reports as well. So, as I mentioned, we're not done with the single audit yet, but we are currently anticipating issuing a modified opinion on your major program, and it's what we have not identified any findings. So, your team works closely to make sure they comply. There's a lot to do in that first year, and we talked with them. Questions on that, so they were on top of that. We have the biggest issues with that is normally procurement, and they were all on top of that. So at this point, we don't have any concerns, but we'll let you know if there is anything that comes up. This is just a little bit of more information on those findings. Like you said, they are familiar with what you've seen in the past with the assistance and focus control entries. It's mostly that transition from what you guys see on a day-to-day basis to budget basis as we take that into the full year-end reports and then submitting those very specific and technical GASBs. They issue more and more of those every year. So just providing some assistance as they implement those new standards. This is our communication to you with a little bit of a summary of the letters. If you're the letter, you'll see a lot from the Americans here. No changes to your accounting standards beyond the adoption of the new GASB standard, which is 101, that relates to compensated absences, sick, and vacation time. The GASB introduced more consistency in how they're identifying and measuring those. The village adopted those. It did not result in any restatement for that adoption, just as a new policy in there. So a little bit different measurement on there. We had no difficulties with management, no transactions without guidance, no communications outside the scope of the audit. They didn't have any consultations with other auditors, and second opinions there. No incorrect statement, and the most significant estimate is that compensated absences because we do it is new. So a lot of no's, nones, and nothings. That's all good news we have here. Just a summary when you look through the report. It's a few of those journal entries that we're pulling it to the finish line, mostly related to pension OPEB that they asked us to help with, which is totally fine. You don't see those listed up here because that's prearranged. And then a few mostly related to those big grant and capital projects at the end of the year that are kind of outside the normal scope of operations, kind of getting those in the right cutoff as you get towards the end of the year, making sure it lands on the right side of that arbitrary cutoff of the year end, helping get those things lined up with the new debts and the grants and all of that. So that's most what we would need to do. I just wanted to highlight a few numbers for you. Like I said, I know you get more current information as you go throughout the year, but just a quick look back to say kind of where is the money coming from on the governmental funds and where is it going. You'll see your largest portion does come from taxes, a little over 50% of your taxes. You also have your intergovernmental revenues, that's state shared revenues, any grant funding that's received. You have your charges for services, your debt issuances, and the others included in others is any interest income. Of larger portion in the last few years. On the expenditure side, you'll see the division between the different functions. Debt service is about a quarter of that. That's your debt and interest payments according to your plan schedule. You also have public safety and general government public works. So,
how do these charts compare with trends of our other charts? I mean, maybe you would know as well. I mean, do they look similar or are they stable?
Yeah, they look very similar, and they would look similar to other organizations of similar sizes. So the one that kind of shifts year to year is if you have a large debt issuance, that number will slide back and forth, and it can kind of skew that a little bit, but an average year of debt issuance is
Culture and recreation, what's the culture and expense?
Culture and recreation is kind of a broad category. It can include parks, it can include the pool, it can include if you have museums, sometimes the library ends up in there as well.
With museum then would be a culture? Okay.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when we do our budget breakdown, pie charts like this, ours is a little more detailed to fit to exactly what we have, where this is more of a overlay.
Taking a look at kind of what's left at the end of the year in your general fund, your fund balance, you'll see it's kind of split into a very small portion of non-federal, that's normally your prepaid, any materials that are on hand. You have your unassigned minimum fund balance and the unassigned portion. Unassigned is what is available for future use for capital costs and meeting day-to-day operations. So that's kind of your working capital if you were going to draw a correlation to it. So that's what you can use that.
And that includes like sinking funds. So some of them we've earmarked for specific purposes. That's not to say that we have an extra $800,000 of
No.
extra.
No, that just means that it's not spoken for by an external party.
True.
So that the.
I read it the first day.
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
Yeah.
What is the definition of gas?
GASB is Government Accounting Standards Board. So that is the national organization that sets the accounting standards. The private site here would be GASB, if you're familiar with that, or the Financial Accounting Standards Board. Then moving into the utilities, just a little bit of an overlay. We have your revenues across the water, utility, wastewater, and storm operating expenditures. Those are fairly similar to what you've seen in the past, some uptick as you see rate increases, rate cases, and then just general increase in expenditures. You have your non-operating revenues.
What is that? Revenue.
Sure, the non-operating revenues, expenses in that case would be expense that would be interest on your debt. And the revenues would be generally interest expense. Your water utility portion that you're seeing there is the grant revenues this year. And then your net transfers, that is your payments in lieu of taxes. Usually in that position, and then your PSC or Public Service Commission rate of return that's calculated for water and light, but not for wastewater and storm because they are not regulated. And if you're looking at Public Service Commission and your financial statements and saying, how do these two talk to each other, there is a schedule at the back that shows a reconciliation of how you get from the Public Service Commission report to the financial statements. There's a little bit of difference in how they treat certain standards. They don't like some of GASB standards and how they present it, particularly related to pension presentation and leases, and there's a few different in classification, what they call operating versus non-operating. So if you're looking at spending some time with that Public Service Commission report and saying, hey, my numbers don't exactly tie, there is a schedule at the back of the report that reconciles those two for you.
Are there limits on the rate of return?
There is when they are calculating your rate cases. So when you go to the PSC and ask for an increase in your rates, this rate of return factors into the determination and how much that rate increase could be. They may communicate with you if that rate of return is too high or too low. They may reach out to you to say it's really low, it might be time to do a full rate case. If it's too high, they may be having some communications with you. If you're in the middle of a large project, your rate of return generally is very low, and then once you finish that project, you go through the rate case process to reevaluate what the rate case should be.
Okay. What is the upper limit? 10%? Would that be too high?
It depends. They don't really, they don't really clarify that. I think their target is somewhere around 4 to 5% of rate of return is usually their target.
Okay.
This is where I get to give you a little bit of a picture into the future. These are upcoming standards that are coming into play. We A lot of these are gonna be mostly disclosure based, so you may see a few more pages in the reports or some additional information, but we don't anticipate it will have significant impact on the numbers within your report. So certain risk-based disclosures, if there's items that may impact, your ability to meet future commitments, they're asking for a little bit of additional disclosure on those. The reporting model will have most impact on your MD&A, so you know, get spend time together in the MD&A. But again, mostly disclosure based, not an impact on numbers. And then again, with capital assets. Changes there. I'd like to take a minute and see if I can answer any questions for you, either on the audit process or the report.
Other than the internal control, that's it, the recommendations.
I believe that. Sounds good. Well, then I get to go to my favorite part, which is I get a chance to say thank you to Kelsey and Besh, not here, but please have on thanks to her as well. We make their life a little bit harder for several weeks while they work with us, and we do appreciate their hard work and their efforts, and I appreciate their proactive nature in reaching out to us throughout the years to have questions. It makes the process at the end of the year a little bit easier, and it's always nice to be able to help on the front end, as opposed to have to help people on the back end. So I appreciate that proactive. And my contact information is up there, so if you are reading this and this puts you to sleep, if you can get some more questions for me, please reach out. I'm always happy to talk.
And Shannon is gonna help us, it's always a little tricky clarifying fund balances, especially for funds like the library where they retain that surplus if there is left over year to year. So Shannon's gonna help us get more clarification on those, especially with the new library project going on. So look forward to that help for sure. Thank you, Shannon, really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Here.
Okay, item D, consideration discussion safety policy, page 54.
Yeah, so, the village safety coordinator provided another round of these safety policies. You may remember these from about a month-ish ago, Bill. The recommended safety policies are included and also in the notes there. Bill, do you have anything to add to more on these? Are these all pretty standard?
Yeah, this is all kind of just still updating our outdated safety programs, and this should be the last round of them, just looking into one more to make sure we don't need it. But hopefully this should be it.
I see what you want, I can see why you want to hire people with experience to go through all the safety measures.
This is all you got.
Yep, and then like,
Wow.
and then for us to keep up on all the training and
Yeah, geez.
We can, yeah.
Now we're gonna, I don't know. Yeah, we gotta back up a little bit. Should help her. We needed a motion to accept the audit, which Becca did, so we need a second. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Is that all on the safety policies then? Do we need, motion to accept them?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Motion to accept the safety policy? Any further discussion or questions from Bill or Scott? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, item E, consideration special resolution 25-09 to appoint lifeguards, water safety instructors, and field supervisors for the 2025 season. It's on page 125.
Yeah, so this is a resolution that we see each year updated with the lifeguards and people that run the pool. We had some new guards this year, which is exciting. You may remember we increased the lifeguard pay. I think it was 2 summers ago now, it'll be 2 summers ago. So they're at $11, and if they get that certification, they jump up to the $15 wage.
I have a lot.
We do. We've honestly, since raising the wage, it's provided more consistency in our staff and also more new lifeguards that look stay for the long term. So, and obviously Megan at the pool does a fantastic job. I'm very fortunate to have her.
I'm gonna go ahead and pass the, resolution for the executive field supervisor for the 2025 season.
Second.
Okay, and motion second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Yeah. Right.
And yeah, and you'll notice there's substitutes and whatnot, so again, it sets us in a good position that we don't have to worry about staffing the pool.
Ready to go there and turn the ground?
No, please don't.
Do it.
Let's see. Item F, consideration of EMS study steering committee.
Yeah, so, Lauren put together a memo that's included in your packet before she had left. As everyone knows, we received the innovation, planning grant to study the EMS services here in New Glarus. Southwest Regional Planning is the one that is doing the study, but it was at their recommendation and just when talking with other EMS professionals, some of which are on this committee, we thought it was a good idea to form the steering committee that would basically serve as the link between Southwest Regional Planning as they're doing the study and the village board. So our intention with this committee is they would meet with Southwest Regional Planning, get the updates on how the study is going, any current findings, and then they will provide an update to the board once a month or possibly even less, just depending on how the study goes. So Lauren compiled the steering committee, the people that are named she has spoken to and they are interested in serving. I think a big factor in choosing some of these people were people that were familiar with EMS practice or were in that practice, familiar with New Glarus, and familiar with local government. So I think we have a really good group of people.
Thank you, Jason.
We just don't know who's the town board representative's gonna be yet.
We have not received confirmation on the Glarus area EMS representation or the town board. They both are aware that we have a seat for them on there and they're gonna let me know as soon as they know who they want to represent their organization.
We did offer it to the chief yesterday, or maybe, or that she could be on the steering committee.
The
She
study,
has not said yes or no yet, that I know of.
yeah, I believe they've not received confirmation of that yet. They have started the beginning process of the study. I think the prediction was that this will hopefully be wrapped up by the end of the year. So it's quite a lengthy study. They're looking at a lot of data, statistics. And just a reminder on the study, they're gonna form this really nice, report of what they find, where the steering committee will be updated. This is completely paid for by the grant we received, so it's not a burden to taxpayers, but also we get this at the end of the study, and if we want to use it and do something with it, great, and if not, we don't have to. It's really a great tool for communities to look into it without having that risk of financial burden.
So we're not gonna be meeting until that study's finished?
No, you'll be meeting throughout the study. They'll just be updating you on like how the study's going, what they have found, key points along the way, so.
And how can you have a steering committee without the head of the EMS?
We would like to have a representative from the EMS. We've offered it to the
It's not
chief.
recommend, I mean, it's not
Not required.
right?
Yeah, and it's not that the chief wasn't interested in it, she just said she would let me know.
Oh. So you need a recommendation?
To form the committee, correct?
I make a motion to recommend the EMS, study steering committee.
Okay. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Now, could you take that chair and move out of the way, please? Thank you.
I have a quick question. The committee? No, I'm kidding. I just tried to sign on from the town. This is gonna be a monthly, or it could be even less than a month, correct?
Correct,
Will not be more than monthly.
That's not our
That's
intention
what
to
it says in the
be.
bottom.
Yep, our intention will be that
Sure.
the committee will meet and provide an update to the board once a month or less. But obviously, this is new territory for everybody, so when we get into it, if the committee decides they need to meet more with Southwest Regional Planning, that's something the committee can choose to do. The committee also has no power in like implementing anything, they're just.
Let me give us a starting point.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, Moving on, item G, consideration special assessment Memorial Park ball field project.
Yeah, so there is an invoice included in the packet. Best Ballfield is in need of a new top dressing.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Yeah, so, the school district, reached out to Midwest Athletic Fields and got a quote for it, which came in at almost $16,000. Village staff, we worked with the school district, and we've also heard from some volunteer organizations that are willing to contribute money to this. Before Lauren left, we looked at our sinking funds, and we obviously don't have this in our budget for this year. So we were comfortable saying that we could use $5,000 out of the ball field sinking fund, which has about $26,000 sitting in it right now. But that is because we combined the ball field accounts we have, so that is everything we have for the ball field. So we felt comfortable saying we could do $5,000 this year. I have heard from volunteers that the school is also willing to do $5,000, and that volunteer organization would make up the remaining cost. I would ask that we have that money in hand before we cut a check for this, because I assume that the village will be paying the full $15,000 and we'll be getting reimbursed from those entities.
So you mean like the bombers and those?
To be honest with you, it was not clarified to me exactly which organizations. Youth Baseball has donated things in the past. I'm not sure who it will be.
When was the last time it was approved?
The youth field, oh gosh,
I think it was like 3 years ago.
Yeah. yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to read.
That they what?
That's what I heard.
That they what?
Wasn't there a
They did this whole top dressing thing like 3 years ago, but apparently you need to do it every 3 or so years. Every 3 or so years, it's been $16,000 in baseball. Well, I think the last time they did it, it cost like $4,000, but now it's 16. Yeah.
Yeah, they
Well,
can't
well,
take
that's,
on
but once you put the anchors in, they're in for more than 2 years, most likely, right? Huh?
I would think so. I don't know that much about it, but I know that they did it, I think most of this
On
stuff
the basis.
3 years ago.
They're-
Okay, but
For
the
their-
16,000 is for anchoring the bases.
Oh, no, that's everything.
A lot of it's for the top dressing. You see, it's this 92-ton, quick pitch infield mix. I think that's the majority of the cost.
Okay, well,
I'm going to send a picture of this to, the Bombers and some of the other baseball guys, and just see if they're willing. So we need another thought from them.
No, I've been told that from, the community, that volunteer organizations have already committed to paying the extra $5,750. I was told that before we took this to the board, we wanted to know that it was paid for. I have not received those payments
Is
from
there
the
anybody in
school.
particular you're talking to?
Brant,
Okay.
he's the one that reached out to Lauren. And was kind of coordinating, this with the volunteer aspect, and then also had said that the school was willing to commit $5,000 towards it as well.
So do we table this until we get confirmation, or do we move forward?
I would just ask that if I feel comfortable moving forward, I would just ask that the motion states something along the lines of that we either have written commitment or the money in hand
Right.
before paying. And Scott, is that kind of where?
That's what I would just make sure that somebody else is gonna commit. That's the most worried ever seen you look. Well, I mean, we nice to help these people, but we can't pay that kind of money. So we would motion to approve this
Yes,
pending money in hand.
if that's what the board feels comfortable with, yep.
Okay.
I think, I'm just gonna check here, I think that, well, we did Florida Park, there was already issues out there, and they were in bad shape. I think, like Scott said, maybe 3-4 years ago, they did a little bit out there. This sounds to me like it's gonna be a major overhaul in the, around the pitching mound and all that, so.
In 3 years, it might not be that huge amount again. It might be
Yeah.
I do think the thing we did the last time was really a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
I think they just got the material and put it
Correct.
down.
Yeah.
Like that's out, but it
So the outfield, even though that gets, has a lot of water retention, that is not gonna be repaired, just the
I
mound.
think it helped, they fixed the line through the outfield
Right.
last summer, I think.
Yeah.
And they said it hasn't been near as bad. So I think their focus is moved from that to this.
Because the tile broke out there and the hole in the ground. So Joe and his crew had to dig it up.
They said it hasn't been near as bad. So they've kind of left that alone.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Jesse,
Yeah, so, we need a motion to approve the Midwest Athletic Field proposal pending cash in hand.
Do we have to put, no more than $5,000 that we are paying, or does that have to be in it as well?
If you want to state that, yep, $5,000 from the village is fine.
No more than 5.
And how do I have that on
You can just say
there? I'm Jesse.
to approve proposal as presented for $5,000.
Right, motion to approve proposal as presented, not more than,
Was the
village portion.
Version is 5,000.
not more than
Yep.
village portion of $5,000.
second?
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Okay, library, update.
Well, we have bid packages that are out there. We're waiting for responses. June 2nd will be bid opening here at 2:15 with the village board meeting on June 10th, correct?
Yes.
To approve prime contractors that are going to be recommended by C.G. Schmidt. So, getting very real. Groundbreaking is next Thursday. I encourage you all to come.
And we officially take over on Friday.
On Friday, yeah, we officially take over the town hall property.
Is that empty right now?
I don't know for sure if it's completely empty. We gave them until the 23rd, so they may still have some things in there. But they do keep their fence. I learned today.
I was there for a town meeting recently and they didn't have any chairs there, so I think.
Oh, okay.
Okay, thanks, Amy. Under the president's report, information discussion and update. I'm gonna just read a little synopsis of what we went through yesterday. Yeah, I don't know how else to put it.
No, it's fine.
On Monday afternoon, representatives of the village, town of New Glarus, New Glarus Fire Department, and New Glarus Police Department met with the New Glarus EMS Chief, Chris Mueller, and EMS board members Bill French. The purpose of this meeting was to discuss the proposed contract amendments that were sent to the EMS from both the village and town of New Glarus. We also discussed the proposed forming of the EMS steering committee for the innovation planning grant study and ended with a discussion on concerns the village has received from residents and other emergency personnel and community members. These concerns include staffing shortages and workload for the chief, the EMS board structure, financial transparency, and mutual aid response time. A productive conversation was had between the entities. The EMS board will be reviewing the proposed contract amendments, which we believe will help resolve some of the concerns mentioned. We look forward to hearing from them and moving forward. So that's what we got out of our meeting yesterday, and
And it's always a 3-year contract.
it used to be years. And then, I don't know how, did she say how many years ago we went to 3 years?
Well,
It's been 3-year contracts since I've been here. It's
Oh,
been 3 years.
right.
It's probably been a few years.
There's some amendments, so we might.
Might not.
The contract term of 3 years was not a proposed amendment this
No.
time, but it's always an option if we would need to discuss that.
Steering committee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
And Chief Mueller is coming to the board meeting on June 17th to present on the budget for this year, and answer any questions or concerns of board members or residents, of course. So, you can ask her any questions you have then. And we probably would not be looking at signing that contract until after that discussion is had, and she's aware of that. So, Right now, she's taking those proposed contract amendments to her EMS board, and they're gonna discuss and let us know if they agree to them, or if they agree to some and want to negotiate others.
But that decision won't be made on June 17th, it will just be presented.
Correct, yep, correct. So we'll have a presentation and then a following meeting. Obviously, budgetary, I'd love to have the contract, figured out, prior to the fall if possible. But also want to give the board, the appropriate amount of time to look at what they need to look at.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Comments? Kelsey did a fabulous job.
Yes, I know that. Yes. Nobody could have done a better job than she did.
No? Very good job. Okay, that's all on the EMS update. I guess we need a motion to go into closed session and a roll call
A motion to go to closed session.
vote.
Peggy Cruz? Becca Softberg?
Here.
Don Hovland?
Yes.
Larry Susie?
Yes.
Roger Troutman?
Yes.
And,